A very pleasant day to each and every one of you, and welcome to this very special segment. In our studios, we have Mr. Bobby Vieira. He is no stranger to our community. He's a well-known radio broadcaster, and he's also the right hand for Dynamic Airways here in New York. He's heading up the marketing and customer relations division here in the New York area. So, Bobby, welcome.
Thank you, Tanuja. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure to have you here, and mainly the foremost reason that I invite you to come on is to really give some clarification to our community. We did experience some hiccups with the inaugural flight of Dynamic Airways, but before we get into some of the clarification, I just wanted to really let our community know that this is the opportunity that they've been waiting for, to be able to afford more flights to Guyana at a fare that they can afford. And Dynamic Airways that's their objective. So first, let's talk a little bit about Dynamic Airways and how they're going to be servicing the Caribbean community, and then we'll talk about some of the inaugural flight issues that we experienced.
Well, thank you, Tanuja. First of all, let me thank the community for embracing Dynamic Airways, even though we've ran into a couple of hiccups, which we will talk about. But Dynamic Airways is a U.S. carrier. It has been around for many years, and they have been in the charter business. And there's a difference between charter and schedule services. They've been in the business of charter for many, many years, and now they're getting into the business of doing scheduled flights. The company that does flights from Guam to China. There are flights from Orlando to Brazil, and now we have Guyana on stream. And Dynamic Airways, I must say to the community, is here to stay. The management and the executive of the company made a promise to the president and the people of Guyana, that Dynamic Airways was going to start up on June 26th, and we did. We ran into a couple of hiccups, but it does not mean that we'll stop. One of the things that we have been instructed to do is to ensure that no passenger, and the first priority of the company is our passengers. We must ensure that no passenger is left stranded. Flights continue irrespective of the airport of origin. Flights will continue to go, but we are in the process of completing everything to be in the JFK airport within the shortest possible time. And I'm talking about a matter of days.
Now, I was on the inaugural flight, and I have to say it was an extremely pleasant flight. We had a few delays, which you will tell the community what those delays were. But overall, in my opinion, as a passenger on Dynamic Airways on its inaugural flight, I have to say that the on-flight service was exceptional. The captain of the aircraft communicated with the passengers. The service was at such high level of everyone was just really very actually surprised that the kind of service they received from the in-flight staff was just exceptional compared to some of the other carriers that run to Guyana and the Caribbean. People complain that the service is poor, but with Dynamic Air, it was exceptional.
Tanuja, I don't want to blow my trumpet, but I know that the services of Dynamic is above board, and our in-flight crew makes certain that customers are comfortable. But let's go back a little bit to where we started and what were some of the hiccups. Dynamic Airways was scheduled to start services out of the JFK on June 26th. One day before we departed, the terminal where we had all the arrangements set up and made told us they could not have accommodated us any longer because Terminal 1 is owned by a number of larger carriers. And if they come and they demand that, look, we need that slot. As a matter of fact, I should let people know, a number of people have asked, why is it you guys chose to leave at 9 in the morning and not at midnight when people are most comfortable? Well, the choice of 9 o'clock was primarily because the terminal only had a 9 o'clock slot to offer. And that is why we opted and we chose.
And this is Terminal 1.
This is Terminal 1. One day before, in the afternoon before we left, this is on the 25th, Terminal 1 called and said, you know what, one of the larger carriers need the slot. They're the owners of the terminal.
I see.
So you guys have to find some way to go.
To replace on a last-minute spot
at the last minute, there was a hustle and bustle.
So how did you finagle out of that to still get the flight to leave at 9 the following day?
We had to get onto the Port Authority. We had to get on to whoever we could have gotten onto. But we eventually ended up at Terminal 4. Now, when we got to Terminal 4, you must have a ground handler. And handling comes in two ways. What you call above wing, which is passenger check-in and baggage acceptance and all of that. And there's below wing, which is loading the aircraft, checking the bags as they go on board the airplane and all of that, fueling and all of that. Those are below wing services. We engage a company, and I will not name the company, but we happened to run into a Guyanese who's affiliated with this company, who gave us the assurances that they'll be able to do things for us. So we got to Terminal 1 on Thursday morning, and we discovered that the company was inept. They were not equipped. They were not prepared. However, at that late stage, we had to go along. You were on board the flight, and you saw TSA were there. We discovered after the flight was ready to move off, taxi and go, that there were a number of bags on the airplane that were not accounted for. And you know, with the TSA, if you don't travel, your bags should not go.
Exactly.
And so
There's strict guidelines.
we had a disparity in the bags and the passengers.
I remember
and
that.
that is what they held up, because we had to offload the bags
Right.
and reload them, but eventually everything was cleared. So that was the first hiccup. The next hiccup was Friday. We came back in. We had an arrangement with Fly Jamaica. We were coming into their terminal, and then they canceled on us. Now, I don't want to say it was on purpose or what, but that is what happened on Friday. And the executive decided, look, until we get this sorted at our new terminal, which we expect to go sometime this week, which is more than likely Terminal 7, we should not deal with JFK, because we have to ensure that our ducks are in a row.
Right.
The next option...
So Dynamic Airways made an administrative decision.
So the next option, even though the option was, or the demand was there to ensure that passengers were not stranded and flights continue. So in the interim, we gave passengers the option of going on another carrier at our expense. We paid as much as $1,200 per passenger to move passengers to Guyana on another Caribbean carrier. They were very friendly and open. They said, yes, we'll accept your passengers, but here's the cost. And we paid as much as $1,200 for even passengers who came on our inaugural flight with a free ticket.
Wow. So you're paying a one-way fare of $1,200.
$1,200 per
to another
person.
carrier.
We placed people who were left, I wouldn't say stranded, but who were discomforted with the timings and the change in the flight. We placed them in the Sheraton Hotel. The demand was to go to a hotel of standard and not just go to Howard Johnson. Nothing wrong with Howard Johnson, but there's a disparity because there's a difference in the Sheraton and a Howard Johnson. We could have done that. We placed people in the Sheraton. Then we decided to look for the closest airport. And I'm doing this all in one shout. We looked at Atlantic City. And we decided, yes, Atlantic City was the best airport to go out of, since we needed to move our passengers.
Right.
The
objective was not to leave your passengers in a stranded mode. Right.
We placed them on luxury buses. We provided meals and refreshments. We took them to Atlantic City. We were there. Eventually, we left out of Atlantic City. After that, we continued to review the options, and we discovered that Bradley Airport in Connecticut, which is a little shorter than Atlantic City, is a better and more convenient place because, one, traffic on the 95 going south of the Hudson River is much, much more heavier than traffic going north in the New England area.
Okay.
So we opted to go to Bradley Airport. And the good thing about Bradley Airport is that it's a small airport. There's an international arrivals building there. When you come in with an international flight, the international arrivals building is a building by itself. Customs are there. You go right up to the jet bridge right there. Your bags are offloaded right there. And from there, you come right out and you step onto the luxury buses. So we did that. And that is what we have in mind for the rest. But we had flights that came in through Miami. People were checked by customs in Miami. And then the flight continued on to the JFK as a domestic flight. And that worked.
Right. Well, more importantly, during this whole interim of things here, Dynamic Airways did not cancel flights
None.
on anybody out there and did not leave any of its passengers stranded. They made modifications in terms of where they were flying into and flying out of.
It wasn't necessary.
Right.
It wasn't necessary to do that. Excuse me. Because, like you said, we did not want to leave passengers stranded or anywhere. So we had to come to a decision. And that is what we've done. And I must add, at great expense. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is our passengers are important.
Right.
And they must get to their destinations.
Exactly.
And one of the things we have been doing is persons who are inconvenienced, the company is giving a $200 voucher for future flights. For example, I could tell you, our flight out of Miami had a little delay because of the fueling situation. Management has agreed to refund every passenger their full fare, along with a $200 voucher.
That is incredible,
can't
and
want
that's
better than
excellent
that.
customer service. But it's oftentimes, Bobby, people focus on the negatives. Not at all times things go perfect in every situation. So I just wanted to really implore to the community out there: don't focus on the negatives of Dynamic Airways. There are some hiccups that they have sorted out and continue to sort out, but things will get better from what Bobby Vieira has conveyed to you.
Tanuja, I must say this too before we go. People need to look at it in a broad sense.
Exactly.
As a Guyanese living in the U.S., I always think Guyana first.
Right.
One of the things, and a positive that people will not recognize, and many people in our community will realize how beneficial Dynamic Airways is when they realize what is going to happen. That airplane could move 40,000 pounds of cargo on every flight. Now, can you imagine what is going to happen within the farming community in Guyana? Instead of people's things going to Port of Spain and it's stuck and then it spoils, you'll be able to move your things directly. Your fish, your fruits and vegetables, they could get here fresh. The amount
Fresh
of people,
and not, because a lot of the commodities and the produce that's being transported, by the time they get here to the US, it's all perished.
because in many instances it goes from Georgetown to Miami, then it's trucked here. Now you have the facility now where you could move 40,000 pounds of freight 4 times a week,
Incredible.
and you could bring it. You could bring your cargo on Tuesday, you could bring it on Thursday, you could bring it on Friday, you could bring it on Sunday. The West Indian Caribbean market in our community look for their vegetables on the weekend. Thursday morning it's here at 6:30. By noon it's on the shelves in the market.
Fresh as ever.
Yep.
Now let's speak a little bit about the summer flights and the summer schedule for Dynamic Airways, and talk about baggage allowance. So people out there will know, what they're allowed in terms of baggage. What are the schedule like for the summer months?
Tanuja, the schedule has not changed. We are still flying on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays. Now, in terms of baggage allowance, this is a large airplane. And one of the pluses that I must boast about, leg room is phenomenal.
It is. I can attest to that.
It's phenomenal. And so people will be able to bring as much bags as they want, because we could move 40,000 pounds of cargo with 2 passengers, a full aircraft,
Right.
2 suitcases assigned to each person, and we still have room. So we will permit people to bring additional bags.
So it's 2 at no cost, 2 baggages.
2 bags, 55 pounds each,
Okay.
and a carry-on piece of 25 pounds, along with a woman's pocketbook, which goes free. But in addition to that, we will permit people to bring additional bags at a reasonable cost, and they'll get their baggage moved with them.
I see.
So and we have already been taking bookings. We open for bookings right up to this same time next year, and we do get bookings. We're moving a lot of students, and Christmas is already filling up. So there are some people who recognize that Dynamic Air is here from a positive perspective and not just to make money and gouge people.
Yeah, well, we have to be optimistic. As Guyanese and Caribbean nationals, we are an optimistic people. So I just want to encourage you to stay positive about this new carrier that's going to be en routing to Guyana, to Trinidad. And Bobby, maybe you can touch a little bit about the Canadians. You're going to be starting a scheduled flight as well.
Once we get New York sorted and settled, there will be flights into Trinidad, into Canada. And last but not least, there will be flights also to Barbados. the flights. Roraima Airways, which is our handler in Georgetown, Roraima Airways has an AOC permit to operate flights around the Caribbean. So Dynamic Airways will fly as Roraima Airways and move produce. Here again, the opportunity for farmers, move produce into Barbados, because you know the wider Caribbean needs produce for the hotel industry,
Right.
and so that is one of the areas we'll be
So this will
focusing
be
on.
good for the economy of Guyana.
Big
for
time,
sure.
the economy will benefit, especially the farmers who produce so many things and they do not have the lift to bring it out of Guyana.
Now there are no other carriers that would be providing this kind of service, right?
Ex-
Except the Dynamic Airways.
Dynamic Airways are there. We have the capacity to move it.
Wonderful. Well, as I said, there are many positives about Dynamic Airways, and Bobby's here to implore to the community to support Dynamic Airways. In closing, Bobby, what is your message to our community out there?
You know, Tanuja, I want to, on behalf of the management of Dynamic Airways, express our thanks for those people who have put their faith and their trust in us. We want to assure everyone that we are here to stay. We are working on the kinks. We do apologize for any disruptions your travel plans may have had. But we also want to assure you that Dynamic Airways is not a fly-by-night operation. It is a legitimate U.S. airline, and we will do everything in our power to ensure that our flights continue as they are on schedule, and most important, our fares remain affordable. People have been asking about increase in fares. Yes, there might be a slight increase, but I could assure you that the increases will not be out of the box that you cannot afford it. Go to our website, dynamicairways.com, or go to your travel agent. And one of the last things, Tanisha, I must say too, Dynamic Airways will not be establishing a sales office. You will not be able to walk into a storefront and buy a ticket on Dynamic Airways. We want to give the travel agents the opportunity for them to be involved and for them to participate and for them to make money because they need to exist. So our tickets are being sold exclusively through travel agents, or you go on our website. But that is something that we have already said that we will not do, and we're maintaining that. We will not be setting up a sales office. You see, you cannot, there'll be no office that you could walk in and buy a Dynamic Airways ticket from Dynamic Airways. You must do it through a travel agent or you do it online.
Great. Well, thank you for that message, Bobby, and all the best to you.
Tanuja, thank you so much, and thanks for the opportunity for explaining ourselves and our side of this story.
Wonderful, and all the best to Dynamic Airways.
Thank you.